I can do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day, all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day, all day, all day. I can do this all day, all day. I can do this all day, all day, every day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day. I can do this all day, yeah. I can do this all day, all day, every day. Backwood after backwood, OG hit me up the pack in, yeah, the pack.
Yo, what is up? What is up, everybody? We are back for episode 2 of Check My Resume. It's been a minute. Your boy been busy handling business. But then beyond that, I wanted to take my time in putting this episode together. As I mentioned at the end of episode 1, which featured the head football coach at Jackson State University, Coach T.C. Taylor, that we were going to stick with Jackson State. We were going to talk to the guy that's the glue behind everything that is happening at the I Love Jackson State University. And so when we talk about this individual, a lot of times when you really look at it, you're about 2 degrees of separation from somebody, if that. And he and I share mutual acquaintances. And so I was able to speak to some of those folks prior to shooting this episode, man, and they had nothing but great things to say about this gentleman that we're going to discuss today. As I stated on Check My Resume, we deal with facts and data. We don't deal in the trivial world. That's not what we do here. We're not arguing about nothing. We're dealing with the facts. And if you don't have the facts, then this may not be the place for you. And so the fact remains about this individual, in terms of where they are today. They took the stairs to get to where they are and to be able to achieve the success that he's been able to achieve up to this point in his career. And that I know the success that is to come and everything that he will be doing in the near future. And so who is this individual I speak of? None other than the Vice President and Director of Athletics at Jackson State University, Ashley Robinson, man. So I've been looking forward to this because I've long admired the work that he's been able to do at my alma mater and the things that he's been able to accomplish since coming to Jackson State in 2019. But before we get there, we're going to walk it all the way back. We're going to go back to the beginnings, of early on in his life, and then working up to where we are in the current day and age at Jackson State. So when we talk about Ashley, he was on this documentary that covered JPS basketball. And if you know anything about Jackson Public Schools, basketball was just, man, it was some phenomenal hoop being played in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, man. Just a rich history of basketball in the city of Jackson. And Ashley and Mo Williams were featured on one of the documentary episodes, and they were talking about their time at Murrah High School. And Ashley began to talk about his upbringing during the episode as well. He talked about living in Bolton, I believe it was, before moving into Jackson and attending Chastain Middle School in Jackson, Mississippi. And so I knew about some of the middle schools in Jackson even because my god brother went to Hardy Middle School. So I used to be in Jackson back and forth. I'm from Grenada, Mississippi originally, about an hour, 15 minutes north of Jackson. But I always knew what was going on in Jackson in terms of like the school system and some of the things that were happening. And so, from Chastain, he was mentioning going to Murrah High School, and his hoop career really began to take off in Murrah. But that didn't come without its challenges and its adversities. And so a lot of people don't know, and I didn't until watching that episode or that documentary, that he had gotten cut off the basketball team and really wasn't playing for real in 11th grade and really didn't get his shot until his senior year. And if you know anything about Murrah High School, they have a rich, rich tradition. And not just boys basketball, but females basketball as well. One of my cousins, shout out Shanika Jones, she played on some of those Murrah female teams that would travel around the country and just do their thing, right? Multiple state championships. You had Coach Tamika Reed, who ended up coaching at Jackson State, that was on that team. So it's kind of ironic that, you know, her and Ashley were at Murrah at the same time, and Mo Williams as well. But anyways, he starts doing his thing his senior year, and I thought one of the more interesting points during that documentary was him mentioning how, you know, their coach didn't allow freshmen to play varsity. And so, you know, they go through that senior year and, you know, they get to the end of, you know, well, the freshmen get to the end of their season. And Ashley is at the helm of championing, bringing up this young freshman to be on the varsity squad. And who was that freshman? Is Mo Williams. And they're like, nah, he needs to be up here with us. And so even at that stage in his life, right? Think about 17, 18-year-old, a 17, 18-year-old telling this grown man, like, hey, now I understand you got some rules, but look, we need this guy on the team with us. And so just early on in his life, being able to really step up to the plate and really display that level of leadership is to be commended, because that doesn't happen very often. And so unfortunately for Murrah, man, it was some ballers around that time. So I could remember getting the Clarion Ledger. Like, you always got the Clarion Ledger on Wednesday and Saturday, because most of the games were played on Tuesday and Friday. So I would always get the Clarion Ledger to check the box score, right? And I can remember watching or looking at the box score and seeing Murrah, and you will see A. Robinson. So I remember him, you know, putting in that work his senior year and really balling. But they ran up against Provine. Provine at the time, if you know, you know. Provine Posse, Dave Sanders, Aaron Harper, God bless the dead, Justin Reed, God bless the dead. Like, they had a squad, and they only lost one game that year. Provine, I'm talking. And that was the Canton High School, who had Alonzo Lane at the time. But they won the state championship. And Murrah, I think Ashley said they lost 4 games. All 4 of them were to Provine. And so, you know, that didn't go unnoticed, right? Because Ashley then was able to get a scholarship to play basketball at Mississippi Valley State, where he starred and really did his thing, right? But I think, you know, in terms of high school basketball, that really began to pave the way for the resilience, the persistence, the consistency, the work ethic, the leadership, all those things that Ashley was able to gain, that he's been able to apply over and over again. And then not only that, elevate and enhance those same qualities to really transform him into the person that he is today. And so when we talk about Ashley at Mississippi Valley, man, first and foremost, we'd be remiss to not mention his head coach, Coach Strickland. And so, again, I'm from Grenada, so our news station covered Greenwood, Greendale, Grenada, and the Delta, right? And they would always focus in on, they have a special segment before talking about Mississippi Valley basketball. They're going to talk about Coach Strickland and his outfit that he had on. He's going to have on some sort of suit with all these colors. And Ashley gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. And everybody from that era and from around that area is gonna know too. And anybody that plays swag basketball, man, this dude, he would be dressed like, man, like like you can't imagine, like not bad, but just very colorful, you know. And so he had an opportunity to play for a legendary coach. And then when we look at the numbers, and some of the honorable mentions, all-time leader in assists and single-season record holder at Mississippi Valley. When you look at the numbers, right, you look at their record, a lot of people will associate Valley with just be this losing program because of what they see today. But that hasn't always been the case in basketball. Like, Valley has had some squads, man, and they've had a lot of great winning season, NCAA appearances. Shout out to Faraji Phillips, who was from Grenada, Mississippi. He played on one of those teams that played Georgetown and ultimately They ran into Othello Harrington and AI, Allen Iverson, Victor Page. You know, we talk about Othello Harrington. He was one of those people that played at Murrah High School, right? And so the thing about Mississippi Valley is they've had some good teams, especially under Coach Stribling. And Ashley played a huge part in that. If you look at his freshman season, they only had 7 wins, but they didn't finish at the bottom of the SWAC standings. They were in the mix, right? But then you go to sophomore year, 18-9, you know, at Valley. That junior year wasn't bad as well, nor was the senior year. So you have 2 winning seasons during Ashley's tenure at Mississippi Valley. You look at the points per game. You know, you look at the assists per game. You look at the rebounds. Ashley's not a tall guy, but he get in there and mix it up and grab a few boards. And if you hoop, then you know that averaging 4 rebounds a game as a point guard, like a 5'8", 5'9" point guard, man, that's saying a lot. That's saying you're going to stick your nose in and go get the ball, right? And so Ashley proved that. But then you begin to look more and more. You look at him being, you know, the 2002 Athlete of the Year, 2011 Hall of Fame inductee. Like Ashley really laid his mark and left his mark at Mississippi Valley State from an athletic standpoint. And like I said, we have mutual acquaintances. And one of the people that he played with was my good friend that I've known since early childhood, Michael Archie. And I asked Mike about Ashley. He was like, yeah, man, that was my point guard, man. And he one of the things he talked about specifically was Ashley's leadership. You know, he said Ashley was gonna set you up. He's gonna get you the ball where you need it. So he was gonna give you the best opportunity to succeed. Didn't put himself before the team. Always put the team first, but could go get his as well when need be. But he spoke on Ashley's leadership from a different perspective. He said, hey, man, you know, after those Saturday games, we win and go out and party. But Ashley was going to make sure that everybody got up and we was at church on Sunday morning, right? So and stood on that, was coming to knock on your door if you weren't up and ready to go with the team to make sure that you were in Sunday service. And so, again, man, we load a lot of the same people, man, and the consistent message that you get is that, man, he was a phenomenal leader and just an overall good dude. So when we look at Ashley's career, right, and we start things off after graduating from Mississippi Valley, he took a position for at the Mississippi Job Corps Center in Crystal Springs, Mississippi, where he served as a recreational supervisor for 3 years. So a lot of times, like when people look at Ashley's career, some people could assume that he just magically appeared in this vice president and director of athletics position. Well, that hasn't always been the case. Like, as you can see, this has been a long road that has been traveled. Right? One that has been really engulfed in establishing the foundational principles to really be a successful athletic director today. And so even in looking at Job Corps, like people know about Job Corps, but like to really be able to put those recreational programs together so that they run seamlessly and did that for 3 years really speaks to who Ashley is and is a testament to him really not being afraid to get it out the mud. And so then from there, he goes to Delaware State, where he becomes an academic coordinator. Then you move on to Jackson State, you become the assistant compliance director. You go to Mississippi Valley State, you become the compliance director. And then you move to the SWAC offices and you become the assistant commissioner of compliance. So there alone, right? Academics and compliance are 2 strong components that go into being a great athletic director. If you don't understand the academic side of it, if you don't understand the compliance part of it, you will not have an athletic program because you will be suspended or your program can be removed for not adhering to the conditions associated with academics or with compliance. And so Ashley was able to fundamentally really pick up on a lot of those things early on in his career. And so one of his big breaks came in 2010 when he became the assistant vice president of athletic compliance and academic advising at Prairie View A&M University. And so you look at that, right? And you look at the time before that, he was able to build on a lot of the knowledge gained, And now you're just advancing, you're promoting up within your career. And so that foundation is getting stronger and stronger. The roots to that tree are going deeper in the ground. And you're really establishing those building blocks that you can really catapult your career from. And so to have that level of patience, that level of consistency to continue to reinvest into your career, you begin to see that, and you see it, really manifest itself into actually then eventually going back to his alma mater, Mississippi Valley, to become the director of athletics. And so, this is now where you become the AD. And so all those things that you've learned, now it's time to apply them. And so while at Valley, Ashley did a lot of great things, and we'll touch on some of those later on. But his time at Valley was short-lived, because now it's like, okay, PV sees this, and then they need an athletic director. They go back and get him. So, 2013, he's back at Prairie View, eventually becoming the VP and director of athletics. And so spent 5 years at Prairie View, continuing to hone his skills, and not only that, help build that program back up, right? And reestablishing the winning tradition at Prairie View, helping with the facilities, and really laying the groundwork from which they could continue to build and usher in this new age in sports. But in 2019, we had to go and scoop them up. We, meaning the I Love Jackson State University. So Ashley then makes what is now his current stop at Jackson State University, where he is the vice president and director of athletics. And before we dive into that experience, I'm going to take a few seconds here to do some quick advertising. I got stuff for sale. I got a hat. I also got a business, Articulate Your Value, that we'll talk about, in terms of advertising. So we'll take a quick break here, and we'll return on this episode of Check My Resume, featuring athletic director Ashley Robinson. What's good, everybody? If you are looking to purchase the crowns that you've seen me rocking in these episodes, and guess what? You can purchase them through our website. You just saw the midnight and the money green. We also got the hunter green and the butter with the white accent, one of my personal favorites. For all my folks that love red, guess what? Got you covered. We got the all red with the navy blue check, the gray accent. We also got the JSU blue, gray check, W.C. Gordon red. All my JSU people know what time it is. And then finally, we got the water blue with the green money check and the white accent. You know what to do. Hit the link. Go get yours. Today's episode of Check My Resume is brought to you by Articulate Your Value. Visit the company's website at www.ayvnow.com. As you can see, this company offers a suite of career services and solutions and workforce development support. This extends to professional resume writing, career coaching, professional branding, and outplacement services for the larger organizations. Additionally, the company has products such as its Resume Builder Workbook and templates that can be bought through the website to build your own resume. The company is currently offering free 15-minute consultations scheduled through the website. All right, we are back. So what we're looking at is the current mission statement of athletic director Ashley Robinson that he has at Jackson State, which is building on tradition and blazing new trails. And so you may think, all right, man, this is something that was just kind of pulled out the air. Well, first and foremost, every good leader has a mission statement, especially when you have a pretty extensive team, right? And this is fitting for Jackson State, because when we talk about building on tradition, Jackson State has a rich history and legacy, especially from an athletic standpoint, right? Being that we're talking about the athletic director, we'll stick strictly to athletics. But we have a strong tradition that dates back over several decades. And so then him being from Jackson, Ashley that is, he understands that. He understands how important JSU is to the city of Jackson. He understands how important Jackson State football is to the city of Jackson. That's our professional team in Jackson, right? We don't have a professional sports team in Mississippi. And in terms of Jackson, the capital city, JSU is the professional sports team. And then when you talk about blazing new trails, you have to evolve. You have to evolve with the times. If you don't change, you are setting yourself up to get left behind. And so you first have to be able to continue to build on what you have in place in order to move forward. And that's why this mission statement is very fitting and applicable to Jackson State University. So when we talk about Ashley's team, he can't do everything by himself. Like, we really have to make sure in terms of, and folks know this, right? If you own your own business, if you're a director at your company, you got any type of direct reports, you're only as good as your team and your team. And in terms of his direct leadership team, he has a strong team. I don't know Travis Jerome, but I've heard of him. Hakeem, I've heard of him as well. And a lot of these folks that have work or that are on his current team are folks that he's worked with in the past. And so he continues to provide them with opportunities as he has moved on. And so not only that, right? When you talk about the athletic department, it gets very extensive. I'm listing some of the various teams here, right? Obviously, you got the academics, you got the sports medicine, you got the stadium, right? We got the Veterans Memorial Stadium that people have to manage that. You got the compliance department. You got the sports network with Rob J. And so, like, you got a lot of different elements, right? And we aren't even listing the teams that are on here. So those head coaches report up to Ashley as well. And I found it to be rather intriguing in an interview that I listened to with Ashley in it, and he was mentioning how, like, all right, if my coaches aren't asking me for certain things, then I'm looking at it like something is wrong. And so when you have a leader that's a servant leader, man, like that's all you can really ask for. And he strikes me to be a straightforward guy. Obviously, our budget's gonna be capped. We don't get these cable TV payouts like these larger institutions, but with whatever he can work with, he's going to make sure that you get everything you need to be successful. And so, you really have to look at that. And then in its totality, like I said, the people that you bring in that you have on your team are going to ultimately contribute to your success. And when we talk about talent acquisition, Ashley has an eye for bringing in talent, especially from a coaching standpoint. You look at some of the faces on the screen now, right? And not only is it, just identifying a winner, it's being strategic in that. It's bringing in people that understand the very fabric of Jackson State. You look at a Tamika Reed, like I said, she was at Murrah. Tamika is from Jackson. And shout out to her too, at Charlotte right now, about to kill it this season. I already know. But like, look at that. Even in that picture, man, my man Ashley got a ring as his cufflink. So that just shows you how much he's won, and then obviously you got one of the probably the more well publicized hires of this decade in bringing Deion Sanders to Jackson State University. Who you think behind that? Like, that man had the foresight to go out and make that happen, had the courage to reach out and make that happen. And then from there, we are what we are now because of TC Taylor, and TC we trust. Ashley knew that. Ashley had TC and Coach O waiting in the fold, right? And so those transitions have just been seamless. You look at some of the other people. He brought on a Mo Williams. Again, Mo Williams and Ashley played on the same high school basketball team. You look at Willie Simmons. He gave Willie Simmons his first head coaching job, football, from Alcorn, hired him from Alcorn at Prairie View. And then when Willie Simmons went to FAMU, he hired Eric Dooley, which I know the Southern people feel a way about that, but at PV, he got them to the SWAC championship game. They unfortunately ran into Jackson State. And Eric Dooley went on to Southern. He gets them to the SWAC championship game. And I think that was in back-to-back years. but they ran into Jackson State, right? And so ultimately, man, you know, I just want to say this: when we look at somebody that can identify a winner in Jackson State, I know we're going through what we're going through in terms of our president, and let me first provide this caveat: the thoughts and views of this episode do not reflect the person that's featured. These are not Ashley words or thoughts; these are mine. But if I'm part of the IHL, I'm bringing Ashley on board to help find the next president, because clearly there's been some issues and some challenges in finding that. But you have somebody that has a track record for success in identifying high integrity winners. Man, you got your guy. So let him have a seat at that table with nobody else, because I think he knows what it takes to win. Right. And speaking of that, speaking of the transition in leadership, man, his ability to maintain continuity across all his operations, speaking of Ashley, despite the various changes in the seats from a presidential perspective at Jackson State, is something to be celebrated, because you have to continue to maintain that relationship with your president as well, because you sit on the executive cabinet of the university. And so to continue to be able to operate with a level of uncertainty and not knowing a lot of times what's happening, that has to be commended, man. So shout out to Ashley for that as well. And so when you have a track record of success for identifying winning coaches, you get championships. You get them across multiple sports as well. And so since Ashley has been at Jackson State, 28 championships across multiple sports. And we have to start with football, right? 3 SWAC championships since he's been here. Obviously, that leads to 3 divisional championships and then 1 natty here lately in 2024. And so, like, if you look at Jackson State football, because that's the cash cow. Let's keep it real. Since we've been in the SWAC in 1958, we won 19 SWAC championships, if I'm not mistaken. And so if you do the division on that, that's a championship every 3.5 years. So that becomes expected amongst a fan base to win championships. We've fired coaches from going 7-4, which ultimately led to a dark period, you know. But being from Jackson, Ashley understands how important JSU football is to the city and how fanatic the fans are, right? So you have to make sure that that is on point when you get in that seat, because you can win in these other sports, but football is where you really want to make sure that you're ultra competitive and that you're winning championships. And Ashley met that threshold of coming in under 3.5 years, being that he hired in 19 and we had a championship by 21. So shout out to Ashley for that. Obviously, you know, there's the women's basketball and Tamika Reed, man, like she was able to just really come in and really put us on the map from that perspective and competing with some of the top dogs. I remember when we played LSU in the tournament, we really should have won that game. And I thought we could have made a Final Four run with how talented that team was. So again, shout out to Coach Reed. You got women's volleyball that has won championships, women's softball, women's soccer. And not to mention, Ashley has been instrumental in bringing back the golf program. So they're going to kick things off, right? Because we want that Commissioner's Cup. We want to compete in every sport so that we can bring that home, right? But another thing that's worth mentioning is the receiving of the C.D. Henry Award for the best all-around men's sports programs in the SWAC in 2022 through 23 and 2024 through 25 seasons at JSU. And then also he did win titles while at Prairie View, won 6 titles there. And so winning is part of the course in terms of what happens as a result of bringing in the right leadership. And everything points back in the direction of this guy, Ashley Robinson. But of course, you have those foundational elements that are going to be crucial as well. As you saw early on, Ashley started out as an academic coordinator, one of his second jobs, and then compliance. And so he understands the importance of making sure that some of the fundamentals are in place in order to make sure that you have a successful program. So from an academic perspective or a compliance perspective, we always are meeting the expectations or exceeding them. And so when you have an athletic director that has been in different roles where that was what they had to do solely as their occupation, I think is a recipe for success. And we haven't had issues, since being at Jackson State from an academic or a compliance perspective. And so again, you can see the numbers, not only while at Jackson State, but also while at PV, achieving perfect scores, from an academic progress rate report standpoint. But, again, this is one of the critical components that you have to make sure that it's on point in order to have a successful athletics program. So from there, we have to look at the facilities. We have to look at the various capital projects that one has been involved in. And so, I could remember this gym that we're looking at to the left at Mississippi Valley. It did not look like that. Mississippi Valley was one of the first HBCUs that I have been aware of, right? We used to go to Mississippi Valley for swim lessons in the summer when I was a young boy. And Coach Wardell, shout out to Coach Wardell, was my swim instructor there. But I remember us going over into the gym at Valley, and it did not look like this, man. Like they had the rollout bleachers. Like my high school arena was in better shape than the gym at Mississippi Valley at the time. I'm pretty sure if you went over there to Amanda Elsie or Greenwood High, you would see the same things. But he was instrumental in changing that and getting this new athletic complex more or less kind of built up. And even though that Valley time frame was kind of short, like a 9-month time frame, he was able to come in and really spearhead this initiative. And I hollered at one of my boys that know Ashley as well, Kenny Mister, and he was talking about how Ashley really came in and immediately was progressive and really instrumental in pushing a lot of things forward at his alma mater. And so shout out to Kenny, man. He got some funny stories in terms of his interaction with Ashley as well. But again, I would put this facility up against any in the SWAC. And y'all could try to prove me wrong. I went to Prairie View. They have a really nice arena as well in terms of basketball. But outside of that, I mean, the AAC is cool at Jackson State. The mini domes, all right, at Southern. But it's not a lot of people that can compete with what Valley has to offer in terms of this facility. I would put them at the top of my list. That's just my opinion. But he also did a lot of great things at Prairie View, right? And was instrumental in driving their initiative to its completion in terms of their new football stadium. From my understanding, Prairie View had a very, very small football stadium prior to building this new stadium. Also, Ashley had a part in their soccer field as well and getting that redone and getting that up to speed. And so then you come back home to Jackson State and the modifications made to the facilities for the football team and also the basketball teams, but more specifically the football team, right? So we're definitely going to challenge most FCS and some FBS programs in terms of facilities from a football standpoint at Jackson State University. Ashley is the key driver behind that. And so before I say this, I'll say this again. The thoughts and views of this podcast do not reflect those of the individual that is being featured. Now, I love the vet. But I think it's time for us to get something new. It's been time, right? And if you want to look at the leadership in terms of, okay, who can lead this through from concept to completion, we have the man in place. And so the state legislators and everybody that's sitting there that's slow to come off of the necessary funds and investments required to build a new football stadium, at this point it's just excuses, because this guy has a track record for capital projects and doing right by the budgets and ensuring that things get done. And so if ever there was a time to get this done at Jackson State, now is the time, because we have the right leadership in place. We also have traditionally a winning program. So the stadium will pay for itself. We can identify the break-even point of when that will be, but it will happen. It's only a matter of time. But we have the leadership in place that can drive that initiative. And if you were to take anything from this podcast, I would definitely say take that and do with it as you may. But anyway, huge shout out to Ashley for all these different things that he's done at multiple institutions. And being that we're there, let's continue to talk about the economics. So outside of the Mississippi State Fair, Jackson State football has the second largest economical impact on the city of Jackson from an events standpoint. Fact check me on that. If I'm wrong, let me know. You got the Mississippi State Fair, and then you got JSU football. And so on a conservative year, right, we'll take 5 out of the 6 years that Ashley has been at Jackson State. We're eliminating a year due to COVID. But conservatively, by my estimates, JSU football generates 20 million at the minimum side of this to the overall macroeconomic impact to the city of Jackson. So what does that include? Obviously, there's revenue generated from ticket sales, there's parking, there's concessions, there's also going to be restaurants, people visiting, there's shopping, there's lodging, there's, the travel in and out of the city, whether that be via flights, there's rental cars, there's all those things, right? And so baseline contributed 20 million annually. I think it's higher than that, but I'm going baseline. The prime years, 21 and 22, you can double that. So if you begin to do the math over that 5-year time frame, this man has contributed or has been instrumental in over 9 figures in revenue being pumped into the city of Jackson, Mississippi via Jackson State football. So you really have to check the scoreboard from that perspective too, to truly understand the impact that Ashley has not only had on the university, on Jackson State University, but on the city of Jackson as well, which ultimately impacts the state. And I think that should be commended. And so when we talk about the economics and we break it down a little bit further, we'll talk about the attendance of the football games. And I talked about this during the episode with TC, but I think it's worth mentioning again. So in 2024, we averaged a little bit over 27,000 people at our games. And that placed us first in FCS, which we've been first for, I think since before COVID, right? But that also placed us ahead of 50 FBS programs, a lot of those that you will recognize. And so a lot of people will argue that, all right, it doesn't matter in terms of attendance and this, that, and the third. Well, in this new age of pay for play, you might want to rethink that. Revenue sharing is going to be more and more important. And if you aren't putting butts in the seats, then you're going to be left behind unless you got some hellified donors, right? But that rev sharing is going to be a huge piece of moving forward. And, Ashley has done a huge initiative that will take into account this season, right? So when we talk about the rev sharing, we talk about the innovation, and we could begin to look at a lot of different things. But again, just kind of going back to the rev sharing piece, we were one of the first movers in terms of probably FCS to add on that initial kind of administrative fee to the season tickets and to the ticket sales to aid in the support for our athletic programs, as well as the band, because the band plays a huge part in the overall football experience. Some people come to the games for the band, and then, oh, by the way, there's a football game. And sometimes a Jackson State or a Southern or a FAMU, people can, like, they try to be, dismissive of us being band schools. Well, I tell you what, if I can generate revenue from a different source, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to do that. I think everybody should want to be a band school too. However, you do have to make sure the athletics are in place. But historically speaking, that is true for all three of those institutions that I mentioned. But, oh, by the way, you're able to generate additional revenue because people are coming to see the band. Now, Ashley understands that. So in terms of the rev sharing, it doesn't just go to the football team. It goes to the band as well. And speaking of the Las Vegas Classic, the Boom will be traveling there. So I know that that contributes to them being able to make that trip and then turn around the very next week and go to a FAMU and be there as well. And so speaking of the HBCU Classics, you have the Las Vegas Classic that's coming up, which, shout outs to Grambling Athletic Director as well for making this happen. But you're able to leverage those revenue generating opportunities to cut your losses in terms of potential losses and having these games at your respective home fields. Although for us, that isn't as much of an issue. It's kind of profit, it's fattening our profit margin, if you will, because we do well. And from my understanding, it's $250,000 anytime we have a game. That's just for the lights and everything to be on. And so when you approach it from that perspective, you're able to offset those costs and still then be able to generate additional revenue from having that game in Vegas. And the Jackson State fans will travel. And we have a huge alumni base. And from my understanding, both institutions do. So that should be a well-attended game. Also, you have like the Gulf Coast Challenge, right? Well, we've been playing Alabama A&M there. From a business sense, if you really knew, like, that is a really good opportunity for both schools, because you're not having to come out of your pocket and you're able to walk away, especially if you're the home team, with additional revenue generated from that game. And so, it's that type of innovation that, kind of keeps Ashley as a hot name, as an athletic director. And the reason why we keep our fingers crossed is that, we're able to keep him for as long as we have. But when you're building something special, like, to me, where we are and what we're able to do, we're able to just continue to build. Like, the sky is the limit at Jackson State. It's almost like you're that entrepreneur that has a budding, like, business that is, it's thriving. It has been thriving, and you can continue to grow it as large as you would like, and you have a lot of freedom to do a lot of the things at this institution that you may not have somewhere else. Of course, the opportunity may be a bit more lucrative somewhere else, but is it going to bring you that intrinsic value that you get here at Jackson State University, right? And again, I look at like Duke University before Coach K got there. It wasn't the Duke that you know now, but he was able to stick with that and continue to grow it. And I'm pretty sure the athletic director behind the scenes was instrumental in that. And I see that with Jackson State, like, it could become that, and it just takes that individual that's committed, that's cut from that cloth, that comes from that city, of Jackson, to continue to grow that. And I know we have the right person in terms of A.D. Robinson. So you also have to consider the fundraising out aspect and the strategic partnerships, because, in continuing the theme of having a small business, a lot of times your budget is not going to be the same as a larger institution. You're not going to get the cable TV deals that yield 50 and 60 million annually that are just at your exposure. You may not have a $300 million donor like I just seen recently. And so you really have to establish these relationships. And I feel like Ashley's done a really good job at that. And there's still even more opportunity out there. So when you look at our points of leverage in terms of what just us from a Jackson State perspective, what we're able to take to the table, again, we were ahead of 50 FBS programs in terms of football attendance. And so I know what y'all are promoting and advertising over there, and I'm pretty sure those partnerships and the finances associated with those partnerships are lucrative. Well, you got the same over here, but more people. We buy the same things. We ship our packages the same way. We fix our cars the same way. We eat the same foods. So you have a consistent fan base that you can really promote that to, and an active online presence as well. Right? Because I know a lot of times people, good or bad, are going to talk about Jackson State because it gets views. Right? And so even having that level of social engagement, that's what you open yourself up to when you consider a Jackson State University in terms of partnering. And Ashley's been able to capitalize off that. You see the Under Armour partnership, the C-Spire, the Reed Apparel that got cut off there. And that's homegrown. And then you look at like the 1400 Club, the Blue Bengal, the Tiger Fund, right? All instrumental in the program. Public figures, shout out to Rick as well. There's a lot of different partnerships, both locally and on the national scale, that we're able to leverage. And then on top of that, you got JSU by 40. You got the Building Champions Fund. You got the Athletics Directors Club. All these different initiatives and ways that you can get involved and establish these consistent donor bases that you're able to bring back consistently. But what I will tell you is, if you don't manage those properly, if you are not winning, you can lose some of those relationships. And so Ashley's done a really good job at not only identifying some of the key internal stakeholders, but also establishing and cultivating those relationships with those external stakeholders as well. And so finally, man, we'll close it out with the accolades. When you're this good, you're gonna get recognized, right? So just recently named the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics in 2024, right? So for the previous season, but he's a two-time recipient of that award, and the list goes on and on, man, in terms of the various things that are the accolades that continue to rack up if you're Ashley Robinson. But I think the work is still out there to be done, man. There's still more that can be done. There's still more that can be enhanced in terms of our facilities. There's a lot of different things that I know he is working on that, man, we're just scratching the surface. And so, I salute everything that Ashley is doing. I look forward to seeing more, because I just know where we can take this thing. I know what we have. I think Ashley knows what we have, and a lot of other people know what we have as well. And so part of it is just acknowledging that. And now that we're able to put that together and leverage that and take that to the table to begin to negotiate even bigger and better deals, I'm excited to see what Ashley and his team are going to do with that. So again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in and being patient with me while I put together episode 2 of Check My Resume, featuring this wonderful individual, Mr. Ashley Robinson. Stay tuned for episode 3. Until the next time, be safe, peace, and love.